until the 21st, that's for sure. Sir, are you comfortable if I put this on here now? Perfect.
No one's presenting at help.
Okay.
Anything, but yeah, and we don't even see it, so it's fine.
Perfect.
Actually, it's the Windows key and the P.
Key, okay.
And then a little thing
And
will
it'll
come up.
slide that thing over.
We're good.
Good.
You're
All right.
loaded on.
Yep.
There,
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, it's last, really. Unless there's a change, like jumping.
They'll let you know.
Yeah, right.
Good evening. Welcome to the June 25th Health and Human Services Committee. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the committee? Seeing none. Any changes to the minutes from, it's going to be 2 months ago. We did not have a meeting last month. I was out in the field last month. So. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go on to our resolutions.
First resolution this evening is authorizing agreements for the City of Watertown City Bus for transportation services for the elderly.
A motion, please. Mr. Maxon, second. Mr. Navawanic. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next is accepting funding in relation to the Office of Aging 2019-2020 age of localities, addressing unmet needs and amending the 2019 county budget.
A motion, please. Mr. Maxon, second. Mr. Drake. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Appointing members of the Jefferson County Public Health Service Professional Advisory Committee.
A motion, please. We got 3 people here. This is Fitzpatrick, second Mr. Navawanic. Any discussion? I believe there's also an email with the individual's references. So. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's a host of departmental reports here. When is the senior picnic? Is that?
Mid-July.
Okay, so it's next.
19? 17. Thank you, Louise.
Yep, it's a friendly reminder for the board members in attendance. Is there anything else to come before the committee tonight? Seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Maxon, second. Mr. Navawanic. All in favor?
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the County Standing Committee on Finance and Rules meeting for June. At this time, I'd like to offer the floor. We have some presentations, so I'd like to offer the floor to Executive Director Melinda Galt from the Community Action Planning Council.
I have some handouts here. Thank you so much for allowing me to visit you tonight and tell you all about our services and programs. I'm Melinda Galt. I'm the Executive Director at Community Action Planning Council, sometimes known as CAPC. And in your handouts tonight, some of you may have already received this. This is our 2018 annual report, and it's a general summary of our services and our finances. And the other handout that I passed out is a little more detailed information about what we do and how we do it. So first of all, the annual report lists our board, our mission. We have a Head Start Policy Council, which is another advisory board to our agency, our leadership team, and general information about customers we serve. And our fiscal year is October through September. So 2018 fiscal year would be October 2017 through September 18. Generally, we report unduplicated numbers, which means a family or an individual may come in for one service, and again during the year for another or two or three other services, but we only count them once. So it's important to note that these are unduplicated numbers. So last fiscal year, we served approximately 6,000 unduplicated individuals, which equates to about 2,000 unduplicated families. We have many volunteers. We had 950 volunteers last year who contributed 18,000 hours of service, and 12,000 of those hours were contributed by individuals living in poverty. We have four main departments, one of which, the first one that's listed, is the Family Center. It's really the hub of our agency. It's a mixture of emergency services such as our food pantry, help with utilities and housing assistance, and also long-term approaches to poverty. And some of our outcomes are listed in our annual report. Head Start is our biggest program. We enroll 275 children per year. We have several centers: Watertown, Carthage, South Jeff, North Jeff, Dexter, and Sacred Heart. We have options within the Head Start program. We have center-based, full-day, part-day, and a home-based option. We provide transportation within center boundaries. Some of the families self-transport. And Head Start is made up of several components. Not only is it education, but there's a strong emphasis on school readiness for low-income children. We have a medical and dental care component, strong component of parent engagement. We include the whole family, not just the 3 or 4-year-old within that family, the parents and the siblings. We have a pre-K program. We contract with Watertown School District, Indian River School District, and new this year is the Sackett Harbor School District. And we provide similar services to Head Start. Pre-K is a shorter day, but it has a lot of the same components, strong on school readiness and parent involvement. Our Jefferson Lewis Child Care Project, or JLCP as it's commonly known, is all about child care. Child care as far as quality child care, parent choices, how to choose quality child care for their family. And there's many components to that department also, including help for child care providers, whether it be a center or a home family daycare business. We provide technical support from everything to early childhood education, to finances, taxes, and how to make the home safe and the best care for children that we can possibly do. Revenues and expenditures, this is for the whole agency. You'll see Head Start kind of singled out in spots in this report. That's because it's a funding source requirement. It's not because we think Head Start is our biggest and best program. It's one of our programs, but you will notice that Head Start is singled out in certain areas of the report. And then on the very back page is our newest initiative called Getting Ahead, and it's a program of Bridges Out of Poverty concepts and constructs. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a really innovative approach to pathways out of poverty. And the Getting Ahead in the Just Getting By World Workshop Series is a 16-week series where low-income individuals come together and learn about themselves and learn about resources in the community, how they might have gotten into a situation, whether it be situational poverty or generational poverty, a medical emergency, housing emergency, but they find themselves struggling. And they learn from each other. They go through the 16-week workshop series, and it's been very successful. We started it in 2017, and we've had 8 cohorts or classes go through the program. And as you can read for yourself, on the bottom of the last page, there are some statistics about people that have gone through the program. Now again, this is our fiscal year of 2018, so some of these statistics will be changed a bit as successes happen. The second handout that I gave you, the typewritten pages, go into more detail about what we do and how we do it and how your money is spent. Our mission is to assist, support, and empower people through our diverse programs designed to alleviate poverty, promote self-sufficiency, and advance community prosperity. And I don't know if you all know this, but Community Action is a national movement. There are about 1,000 community action agencies across the country, 49 in New York State, and we're all based on the same premise. And it hasn't changed since President Kennedy's an idea about this. Of course, he was assassinated, and Lyndon Johnson took up the initiative. And if you remember from history, or maybe you've lived it, the War on Poverty came out of the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964, and we've been known strong ever since. So our local agency was incorporated in March of 1966, and we were designated as the official anti-poverty agency for Jefferson County. And community action programs are grassroots programs. Everything is based on local needs. Although there's 1,000 across the country, we're the same but different based on a needs assessment that we conduct and what's best for our community. By legislation, 1/3 of our board is consisting of public officials, whether it be county or city, or their designees. I know you all are busy and don't have time to sit on 50 boards, but we've been very lucky. We've had very good representation from the county and the city in our existence. So how your allocation is spent. We have sometimes a shortfall of funds between the grants that we receive and our expenses. And some of those programs that we don't even have funding for, that we use some unrestricted money for, include the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, or VITA, which brings in a lot of revenue into the county and the area. Our summer food service program, a program called Ready to Work, which is a partnership with the Jefferson County Employment and Training Department, where we can support folks through vocational training tuition, books, supplies, and family needs, like transportation, child care, housing assistance, and whatever that family may need. The Emergency Food and Shelter Program used to be called FEMA. That's where we can provide housing and food assistance, utility assistance, help with rent to prevent eviction, and some of our energy and housing programs. Mostly your allocation goes towards our Family Center. Our Family Center provides emergency services as well as long-term solutions to poverty. We're also required by many of our programs to have at least a 25% local match, and it can't be state or federal funds. And that's where the county's allocation helps us out tremendously. We need to raise about $700,000 per year for that local match. And your allocation of $106,000 goes nicely towards that match. We're big on partnerships and collaborations, and without our partners in the community, other nonprofits, government, the community, individuals, volunteers, we couldn't administer all of our programs. We employ about 180 people. Average annual payroll is about $3 million. And last year, our budget was $7.8 million. Generally, we provide support so families can work. We're big on employment. Any barriers to employment, including child care, transportation, education costs, life skills, resume building and interviewing techniques. And we offer career paths out of poverty. Our biggest part of our mission is long-term solution to poverty, not emergency services, which a lot of people have that impression. We screen Head Start and pre-K children for early intervention services, saving taxpayer dollars. We serve military families who are isolated from their home communities. And local government continues always to play a big role in our agency, whether it be the county or the city, through financial support, board membership, community projects, and we very much appreciate your continued support since 1966. Also in the handout is a little bit more detail about our programs than what's in the annual report. Head Start, main goal is increasing school readiness. And not only is it the educational piece, but it's also, as I said before, medical, dental, mental health, nutrition, social and emotional skills, which are increasingly demanding from families, family support and parent involvement. We provide transportation to our centers, and we have many centers located not only in Watertown, but in Dexter, Evans Mills, Carthage, Adams, And in collaboration with Head Start, we provide universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds. And it's based on the Head Start model, so it involves the family. Our Jefferson Lewis Child Care Project, we're all about early childhood education and quality child care and employment. We recruit daycare providers each and every day. It's a real need in our community, not only the affordability, but the availability. The demand far outweighs the supply. We have, in that department, we have a program called Child and Adult Care Food Program, which is a reimbursement program for providers to provide healthy and nutritious meals. It helps the child care providers and the centers immensely with their food costs. Child care resource and referral. We make referrals to meet family needs and to choose the best quality child care setting for their family. And again, we advocate for quality child care on a daily basis. We provide a course for Child Development Associate credential, which child care professionals need as part of their training to advance in the child care field. We subcontract with the Department of Social Services in Lewis and Jefferson counties to register and inspect licensed daycare homes and centers and school-age child care programs. One of our newest programs is called Employers Resource Network, or ERN. You may have heard of that. This is a service where we work with businesses and employers, including nonprofits, to reduce turnover and increase retainment of employees. And we employ a success coach. And this success coach has hours at each business where employees can come confidentially and talk about issues they may have as far as barriers to employment, whether it be transportation, child care, financial issues, family issues, anything that might cause absenteeism and result in termination of their employment. And it's worked out really well. We've been running it about a year now. We have 4 businesses. We're recruiting for businesses, so if it sounds like something you know somebody might be interested in, let us know. In our Family Center, we have many programs. I mentioned the housing and utility assistance. We are designated by Jefferson County to be the fair housing office for the county. We meet with people who have questions or complaints about their housing as far as discrimination. We act as a clearinghouse, so if we do feel it's a discriminatory issue, we refer to either the Central New York Fair Housing Office or HUD or the Attorney General. Volunteer income tax assistance. Again, we help low-income folks with their federal and state returns, bringing in about, I think last year was $700,000 back into the community. Food pantry, it's pretty straightforward. Our summer food service program, we have about 27 sites throughout the county, and we serve about an average of 800 children per day. Comes in really handy for families that don't have access to school free or reduced school lunch and breakfast. Our nutrition outreach and education program helps people with SNAP, and it's called food stamp assistance, with their documentation that they need and recertification process. We have several holiday programs, including Christmas Crusade for Kids, where gifts are purchased for the children of low-income families. We collaborate with about 20 agencies on that program, and that includes food baskets and more. I talked about getting ahead in a just getting by world. Last but not least, our housing and energy services. Weatherization is kind of a well-known program in the area. It helps lower utility bills, which is a big bite out of low-income folks' budgets. We conduct audits to customize the work in the home, and services could include installation, repairs or replacements of furnaces or heating systems, appliance replacements, and safety issues like carbon monoxide and combustion issues. And Empower is kind of a complement to weatherization. It's funded by NYSERDA, and they have a lot of the same assistance, cost-effective electric reduction measures. Again, it can include installation of furnaces, but also lighting and appliance replacements, air sealing, and repairs along in combustion. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's a big nutshell. It's many
I'm
things.
trying to keep it brief.
Have we any questions for the executive director? Seeing no hands, I just would like to, well, one, thank you, but I also would like to add that as a former public educator, culture of poverty is the crippling factor. I mean, no matter how bright you're born, if you come from a family that's crippled, it's hard to get out of that. And so I applaud what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, moving on to our next presentation. Is there Mr. Sam Purrington here? And Mr. Purrington is the Executive Director of the Volunteer Transportation Center. Mr. Purrington, at the end of the presentation, be willing to take questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you for the time. It's been a long time since I've spoken to this group. Volunteer Transportation Center used to be the Volunteer Center of Jefferson County. It was formed by the United Way back in 1991. United Way thought that Jefferson County needed a place to triage volunteers, willing to volunteer, and people that needed volunteers. So for the first several years, they did this by organizing people that would want to volunteer and people that needed volunteers. They found out very shortly that if you loved to fight fires, you knew how to get to your local fire department. If you loved animals, you knew how to get to the SPCA. If you wanted to work on a farm for free, you knew how to find one. So very quickly, they cut bait and found out that the need in our community was rides. They received calls every single day saying, my kids don't live here, I need to get to the doctors, I don't want to end up in a nursing home. And so that's what they concentrated on. So over time, the Volunteer Center of Jefferson County slowly became the Volunteer Transportation Center because that was the need in our community, and continues today. So from those beginnings, from the United Way back in 1991, and a guy by the name of Ben Coe, we come to where we are today, which is every year our little 501c3 is providing over 5 million miles worth of transportation to Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence County, and some surrounding areas. We have over 85 volunteer drivers throughout Jefferson County, picking up seniors, disabled, the blind, people on public assistance, and taking them to doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, other critical needs. The mission of our not-for-profit is to provide rides for folks that have a barrier to care through volunteer drivers and something called mobility management. So we do lots of different things. I can't go into an extreme long laundry list like Melinda because we do one thing, which is transportation. It's a singular focus. We spend a lot of time focusing on operational excellence. In the transportation business, you have to be on time and you need to make a dollar stretch. The volunteer driver ideal tends to be extremely inexpensive in rural America. We're able to pick people up using volunteers' personal vehicles, which means we don't have to buy any, which is a big deal, and we reimburse them for their mileage. So most of our volunteer drivers are seniors themselves. A lot of them are, the average age is 60. A lot of them are retired. They get retired. They don't know what the heck to do, but they know they got a car, and somehow they hear about us because typically our recruitment strategy is word of mouth, because if you guys just saw something on TV that said, hey, pick up some strangers and take them somewhere, before Uber and Lyft, it really wasn't something you wanted to do. But if your brother or somebody that you knew told you about it, all of a sudden you might be curious, like, oh, I can help people in my own community. I can choose the times I want to do this, and I need to be able to do what? Drive. And so that's it. I mean, that's the long and short of it. We background checked all of our volunteers. We work hand in hand with the Department of Social Services and do a lot of work for them. They handle our background check process, so the volunteer drivers are going through the same background check as a foster parent. We are driving foster kids for Department of Social Services, so we're picking up babies, 17-year-olds who don't want to go. We're picking up all kinds of folks, and our certified drivers are able to handle those rides and complete them on a daily basis. Every day, our offices here in Watertown are processing over 800 trips that we're doing throughout the North Country. So the money that we receive from the county as an authorized agency goes directly to mileage reimbursement. None of it goes to administrative. It doesn't pay for my time or the computer systems we use to optimize schedules. We got into the software business a few years ago, and now we have algorithms that help us define our trips and make it as efficient as possible, because a volunteer driver gets reimbursed for their mileage, not for the number of people in their car. So if I can have a volunteer driver pick up somebody on their way to an appointment and then drop somebody else off on their way back, I don't have to reimburse the driver any more money, so I'm able to serve a lot more people. Over the years, that's been our key to success, because there is a limited amount of money in our community for fundraising. Every year we have to raise somewhere around $400,000. We do that through individual donations, some of which people in this room donate, through client donations. They do contribute quite a bit. We're in every town's budget here in Jefferson County, in most of the towns in Lewis County. We're just starting that process in St. Lawrence. You guys don't care about that. And so we're able to make those dollars stretch a lot further because of the breadth of what we do. 75% of what we do is contract work for the government. 15% of what we do is contract work for other not-for-profits, and then 10%, which is really the percent that matters, is where we fundraise to support seniors, the disabled, the blind, that actually don't have programs by the government to help them stay in their homes. And those are the folks that really do a huge job of making the volunteers feel like they did something to keep somebody's mom, somebody's dad in their home because their kids weren't here. We serve a lot of military spouses. A lot of misnomers out there that every retired vet and their family members get VA benefits. That is not the case. Spouses don't necessarily get VA benefits if you didn't serve during active conflict. Most of the folks serving now are, because we've been in active conflict. You don't receive VA benefits, so you don't get to go to the VA, but you get to go to Samaritan. So we transport those folks, those widows, family members every day, and do it proudly. So we work with just about every single not-for-profit. Programs that CAPC does for getting ahead, we support those programs by getting people to those trainings to get them hand up out of poverty and get them working and get their lives on the straight path. So we appreciate everything the county's done for us. I think long-term, this county is lacking in public transportation, and it is a anomaly across rural upstate, and if upstate's above New York City, that we work hand in hand with especially St. Lawrence County, where we handle mobility management for that county, and we are making a lot of differences up in St. Lawrence County to try to address employment, community engagement. There's a lot of people that have a single vehicle household. That second vehicle is not something they can obtain, and public transportation would be a great fix for that. So I know I'm not here to really talk about public transportation, but as those topics come up in the coming years with the city and the MPO, the need is there, and it gets utilized, and it's proven. So be open-minded to it. So that's my shtick, if anybody has questions.
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation, very interesting. I would ask, are there any questions for the Executive Director? Legislator?
Sam, when did you start?
When did I start?
When did you start?
2010.
Okay. And it's just about the time I became chairman my first year in 2011.
Yep.
And it was something that I asked you to do because I was concerned about the support the volunteer transportation had. And you put together, broke it down, by legislators, district by district. And some of them didn't think at first there was that many people that were volunteering in their district. You didn't count up hundreds of miles. You counted up thousands and thousands of miles that your people were driving, whether it was in Alexandria Bay, Carthage, Adams, the city. We were all very astounded, and I know that you do a great job, and I appreciate that. I don't really have a question, but I do remember that, and it just absolutely floored not just me, but many of the other legislators. It's told us what you were doing for all the people in this county.
Yeah, we tend not to know the people that need rides like this, because if it's somebody that we know, we take care of them. We take care of our friends and family. My grandmother, when she got to the point she couldn't drive, she had 28 kids and grandkids in the Carthage area that were willing to take care of her, and it wasn't a question. But the people that we meet don't have that same situation, and there are kids that leave the area and they're not here. But those people have contributed to us, and we need to take care of them as time goes on. And we've got some great nursing homes and assisted living facilities here, but if we can keep them out of those as long as possible, I think it's the best thing for them and the community. So.
Thank you. Anything further? Legislator Beck?
Thank you. My question is, I guess, towards the foster kid transportation component, that's a new one that I hadn't heard that you've been involved with. How long have you been doing that?
Since 2006.
Interesting. What do you do as far as, you mentioned infants, what do you do for car seats? Because I doubt there's very many senior drivers that are...
No, some of the
seats.
drivers, when I transport my kids, we just put them on the floor, or, my wife would nurse them while we're driving, and that was kind of that's how they were. And so we have to teach them very, very quickly.
They didn't have seat belts.
Yeah, so we have to...
Some of us are grandparents, and we do have the child seats ready and willing and able.
It is an educational thing. There's a lot of misnomers about car seats out there and about which ones are required when. You can ask 10 cops and you'll get 10 similar answers, but not exactly the same. So we go through and we train the drivers that we're going to entrust with children, because not every driver that we meet comes in and says, I'd like to pick up a kid by themselves and take them some places. And people absolutely love it, and they're attracted to it, and they do really well with it. It is tough because you do transport those children, and after we train them on how to use the car seats, and we provide them car seats that we make sure are up to state regs and so on and so forth, they get attached to the children. And then if the kids don't get to go home or it gets placed, and they're going through all of those emotions with them. So it's a very fulfilling volunteer ride, but it's very tough. But that's how we handle it. Lots of us have been parents. That when they send you home from the ER, you're like, all right, well, I guess I've got this. But they're not that complicated once you train folks. And, nowadays, as long as you follow some simple rules, which we provide the volunteer drivers on when you're forward-facing, when you're rear-facing, when you move out of infancy, you can follow those rules, and it gets you out of 99% of the issues. So that's how we handle that.
And beyond that, too, is, these seats, they're costly to begin with. They have an expiration date to them. What do you do, or how do you fund replacement of these seats over time?
Well, most of the volunteer drivers will find their own seats, and then we check the seats to make sure that they're within the aging out, because even something as silly as a booster seat ages out, which doesn't make any sense at all because it's a hunk of plastic, but I think it's a smart way by the booster seat industry to sell more booster seats. But we check them all and make sure that they're legit. For the drivers that don't want to use them, we keep an inventory, we clean them, we issue them out as they age out. We attempt to recycle them. That's always tough because there's so many different recyclable components of a child seat, and that's how we handle that. The cost is, we have a line item in our budget of $750. It's not that much in a $5 million budget for car seats, but that typically is picked up by Department of Social Services. So it's a very small line item. They'll last for 5 years or so. Yep.
I have one. Are there other questions? I have one question. The mileage rate, I know that there's different rates, like if you're going to the doctor's office and if you're, I can't think of the different things, but do you know what rate you have to pay?
Lots of different rates. If you're driving yourself, the IRS will allow you to discount 20 cents on the dollar. It was 18 a year ago. If you're driving for us as a not-for-profit and it's a government-funded program, then we go to the full mileage reimbursement rate set by the IRS of 58 cents, which is extremely high this last year, and it has put a big burden on us. For all of our charitable trips, which is where the money from the county goes, we have kept that static since 2008 at 44.5. And we were able to do that because so many of our rides are for government programs. So that's our current rates that are out there is 20, 44.5 for all our charitable programs, and the full 58 cents. So if you're our volunteer driver, it's not a bad. It takes care of your car payment, takes care of your insurance, and you are not in the same category as an Uber or Lyft driver, which is a contract employee. It's similar but very different. You can't flag us down or push a button and get a ride, and that keeps us very different. We're a human service organization.
Is the insurance provided by the volunteer, for the drivers, or no?
No, they have to bring their own vehicle, their own insurance, their own time. They have to contact all the clients the night prior and say, hey, my name's Sam, Dan, I'm going to take you to, to wherever we're going, to Samaritan. I'm going to pick you up at 9. I drive a pink Cadillac. What color is your house? Oh, hey, I think I knew you back in the day. So, we can, and usually it's your neighbor picking up a neighbor. They carry their own insurance. We carry umbrella liability insurance to protect their home in case there was a bad accident, not only for the vehicle issues that may happen, but also for just non-vehicle related things like I helped you into the grocery store and you slipped on a grape and you decide you want to sue me and the volunteer and so on and so forth. And we've never had a claim over the years, and 5 million miles a year, things happen. Last year we did 150,000 trips in the Tri-County area. So it's growing.
Impressive. Anything further? No? Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Our next presentation is Sports Fishery Advisory Board. Is there Hal Thornton? Hal Horton.
Bernie Henry, secretary.
Oh, Bernie, I'm sorry.
Chairman couldn't make it, Ken Carmen. Our vice chair, Larry Rogers, couldn't make it, and Hal couldn't make it, so you're stuck with me tonight.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to get out of the way so you can do your PowerPoint.
We're ready to start now? Okay. My name's Bernie Haney. I'm the secretary. This is the agenda we're going to cover tonight. And it's, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of who we are and what we do. I've been with the board for about 4.5 years, and I found out we're the best kept secret in Jefferson County. It was kind of scary. So we're going to talk about the advisory board's enactment and our purposes. I'm going to review the data we have right now for 2009 and 2011 angler surveys. The 2009 data was conducted by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation with Cornell Cooperative Extension. And 2011 data is from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife angler survey they did. Then I'll talk about advisory board actions taken, utilization of our authorized funds, which is of greatest interest to this group, and some of the future projects we're looking at for this year and moving forward. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we were enacted on June 3rd of 1980 under Resolution 90, and our advisory board was created to be known as the Jefferson County Sport Fish Advisory Board. Our purpose is to study the problems associated with maintaining and improving the Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence River, and inland water fisheries and determine needs for improved access, support facility services, and advise our county legislators, administrators, and local governments as to actions to be taken so we can get the full potential out of the county's fishing resources. And the board has some special purposes in our bylaws. I direct you to bullet number 2, to provide information on fishing to Jefferson County and the general public. Then 3 and 4, we work with the Fish and Wildlife Board for Region 6 out of the DEC. Those are quarterly meetings we attend. And then we provide a public forum for sportsmen, businessmen, government officials to address the problems and potentials of the sport fisheries. And that's kind of the problem I have, is that how do we provide a public forum when there's no place on the county's website or any place to find out who we are to contact us? We can't really fulfill that obligation. So that causes a problem and concern for me. And the last thing is we work with Lake Ontario Sport Fish Coalition to address problems if they think there's any in Jefferson County waters of Lake Ontario. Now the data I talked about, this is old data, but it's the only data that we have to go on right now. So in front of you, you can't really see it right now. And when I get your emails after this, I'll make sure you get digits of this presentation. But the prime time fishing in Jefferson County is from June to September. And this report here shows that total we had 626,093 fishing days committed in the county. So that's pretty good. And we had a total of 134,615 anglers from out of state that came. So that's a nice thing. The number one species they pursue when they come to Jefferson County is black bass, either largemouth or smallmouth bass. And on our county seal, we have five little emblems on there, and one of them is a black bass, so that kind of warms my heart. I'm excited to see that. We recognize that that's the key fish for the county. That's a good news story. This is also from that same 2009 survey, and this shows that Lake Ontario is the number one body of water fished in New York State. And also St. Lawrence River is number 4 on the list. Now those two items I just briefed you on are important when you come to this next slide here. And the expenditure, daily expenditure for daily trips for resident anglers is between $28 and $22 a day. So if you're going to fish and you're from Jefferson County, they figured out that that's what you spend. But of interest here and highlighted on the yellow to your front is that if you're a non-resident, that means you're not a Jefferson County resident. When you come here to fish, you're going to spend $90 for your day trip. I mean, that's big business. And if you look at the next one down there, bullet number 2, Jefferson County brought in $35 million for sport fishing. So fishing is big business in the county. Now the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, their survey from 2011 differs on value just a bit. And I highlighted it. Their daily average trip per day is 35, and that was 2 years after the 2009 amount of 28. So I put a little blurb underneath that for you. So based on this $7 biannual increase, the 2019 average day trip expenditure should be mathematically around $63 versus the 28. So you're probably wondering, why did I tell you that? That's going to lead us to some of the actions we've taken as a board and how we utilize those funds to achieve those actions and what the county gets, your ROI, your return for investment when you do business with us. First, we provide funds to local fishing derbies and helping them advertise the derbies. We have a spring derby. It's done in May. There's an opening bass and walleye derby we support, and there's a fall bass and walleye derby we support. The second thing we do is we provide funding to some charter captains down in Henderson Harbor. What these guys do and gals do is they take a select group of youth out fishing, spend the morning with them fishing, show them about fishing, introduce them to the sport of fishing. Then they bring them back and they give them a shore lunch down in Henderson Harbor. And the third thing we do is talking about providing information on fishing to the general public is we've established these creel cards. I'm going to give you one of these. This costs about $40 to $50 to get these all done. This is your daily rate of what you set our speed, how we have to do it. And, you know, that is, and that's roughly right on, so going back to this one, and you can contact us on the back of this card if you have any questions concerning courses. And then, part of my son, you're going to find it, okay? Now, the next slide is under actions taken by the board so far. As we work with the Region 6 Fisheries Office and resource managers to obtain a public boat dock for Butterfield Lake, we had some complaints from some area fishermen and some sporting clubs that Butterfield Lake is a nice lake. It's got a wonderful DEC launch there and parking for boats and trailers, but when you launched your boats, you had to stand in the gravel because there was no dock. So the DEC listened to us. They agreed that was probably worthy of doing it. So they put in a small dock, but it's enough that you can launch one boat, tie your boat to the dock, park your truck and trailer, get in your boat and go fishing without going swimming at the same time if you don't desire to get all wet. So that's a good news story there for us, I think. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but about 4 years ago, we had a big discussion in the county with the Department of Environmental Conservation Fisheries Chief for Region 6 about catch and release bass fishing. And this next bullet talks to that. And I was kind of the spokesman that kind of led that charge. And the reason I did that is because in my previous life, I was the conservation director for the New York Bass Federation, which is comprised of 45 different bass clubs that have 45 to 80 members per club all across New York State. And all of those folks really wanted to have catch and release bass fishing. What that means is our normal catch and keep season for bass runs from the third Saturday in June to December 1st. And then in Jefferson County, you can't keep bass anymore. But everywhere else across New York State, beginning December 1st until the third Saturday in June, using artificial lures only, just lures, not live bait, you can go out and catch and release as many bass as you want to. And the reason I'm sharing that story with you is because Oneida Lake, that's what put them as number 2 on the most utilized waters. The catch and release bass fishing took off in 2006 all across the state. We denied it because we had a problem with cormorant birds and predation on the smallmouth bass. The DEC has since shown studies that the dietary intake of that bird is 98.3% round goby, so they're not eating bass anymore. But our DEC fisheries chief still feels the bass population has not recovered yet. But any bass fisherman you talk to will tell you that it's exploding and they love it. Now, the interesting thing about that, I won't take too much more time on that because this is actually another brief I want to get on your calendar to give you because it's really important. But we've talked to the DEC about this. We had the public meeting. The headquarters office in Albany told our regional manager, no, the Jeff County Board is correct. You're going to hold a public meeting and we're going to hear what the anglers want. And it was basically 50-50, with the largest group against it being the Henderson Harbor Guides Association. Great bunch of guys, and they're wonderful people. They do a good service for the county. They absolutely do. But that's denying access to the fisheries to thousands of people that would really come up. I mean, it would extend our angling. Most times, the ice is off the lake around, I'd say, first week of April, last week of March if you're lucky, but first week of April for sure, and it was this year as well. And when you get that, then that gives you from April until the season opener, third Saturday of June. And if you're looking at that $90 for a non-resident angler to come up here, they'd come up here. But right now, even our people that fish for bass are forced to go out of region. It's kind of bizarre in the fact that I live in Henderson Harbor myself. If I want to catch bass, I launch at Henderson Harbor. I go out to the lake. I turn left, go down to Sandy Pond, 14 miles, and I can catch all the bass I want. But if I turn right and come towards the Golden Crescent, Black River Bank, Packett's Harbor, can't catch a bass. It kind of doesn't pass the common sense. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of doesn't pass the common sense check. So, yeah. It's really tough. So that's That's one of the concerns we have. We haven't been successful getting that season open. We're still working on that. So utilization of funds. The 3 derbies we talked about, you can see up to your front. We give them $200 to help offset their cost of advertising. Those commercials you see on TV for the different derbies. We help them with that. The Captain's Day, that's usually 6 captains that support that, and we give them $80 to defer their costs for gas for taking the kids out for the day. The career limit cards, which I passed out, those run $40 to $50 when we get them printed. Staples is usually $40. One time a guy did it someplace else and it cost us $50, but we try to keep it around $40. And then number 4 has got my attention. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to lead you guys astray here. They do an annual end-of-season meeting in September, which we're required to do, and we give our annual reports to the secretary here at the clerk's office. But part of that is we host a dinner and we feed ourselves for $300 on the taxpayer's dime, and I'm not real comfortable with that myself. I'll just tell you that up front. I don't like that. Don't like it a bit. And then adjustments are made to satisfy our budgetary requirements. So that's pretty much where we spend that, I think it's $1,200 to $1,300, whatever it is you give us each year. That's what we do with it. Moving on to the next and final slides, our future projects. We're still sending letters of concern on the IJC, and we want to repeal that Plan 2014 Bravo. Won't beat a dead horse on that one. I know you're leading the charge there as well. It's important. Again, second bullet, we're continuing to seek implementation of the statewide catch and release season for black bass. And for our future projects, that's really pending on public input for anglers, marina owners, tackle shops, hotels, campgrounds, and restaurants. So they got to tell us what they want with the fisheries. Is their confidence level with the fisheries high? Do they like what they have? Do they like what they're getting? Are their customers satisfied when they come to Jefferson County to fish, or do they want more access? And I can tell you I've been contacted by there's 2 federations across the country for bass. That's Bass Masters. You see some of them on TV. They're the ones that go to Washington. They have an affiliate chapter in New York comprised of about 20,000 anglers. And then there's the FLW. They fish the river as well. And sometimes Lake Champlain. They have about 12,000 anglers. Their representatives for New York State have been sending me hate mail, for lack of a better term, of why can't we get catch and release in Jefferson County? So it's an important thing. It's near and dear to them. They want access. We want access. I want access. I'm a bass angler. And I told our regional manager, the fisheries chief, I said, when it comes to fishery projects, you'll listen to the walleye angler, the charter captains, what they want to do for walleye fishing. You'll listen to the Eastern Lake Ontario Fish Coalition, how they want you to pursue the longevity of trout and salmon, so forth and so on. But yet when a bass angler, now we're talking dedicated bass anglers, these guys and gals will go to the flashy boats you see, $35,000 to $50,000 for a boat. Inside that boat, $8,000 to $10,000 worth of tackle. Do you think somebody that spends that much money in pursuit of that game fish is going to recommend or do anything to harm their chosen species of fish? It'd be insane. Of course they wouldn't. But it falls on deaf ears. So I'm asking, I need your help to reconcile that, to be a second voice for us with the DEC, because it's stuff. We can't crack the code on it. We just can't. And it just doesn't make any sense. So, team, that's my presentation for the Fish Advisory Board. Any questions? How do we turn this thing off? I'm not blind in any place.
This was a very interesting presentation. I knew nothing about bass fishing, and it's very interesting. Although I doubt that I can help you much. But
You never know, sir.
so, do we have any questions? Legislator Nabawanek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming. I enjoyed the presentation as well. Just clarification on the with the IJC and Plan 2014. Is that something you said a future? It says up there future. Has the board come out with an official position on it after
We're working on
2017?
that. We're working on that right now. We addressed it in 2017, and we're getting ready to readdress it again. We're getting input from the same group I mentioned in the first board.
And other organizations similar along the
Yes.
taking the same position.
And it's, yeah, people are not happy. Not happy at all. Anyone else?
Legislator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions, I guess. Is that okay?
Be
Mr.
my
Chair?
guest. Yes, enjoy yourself.
How much work do you do with the Indian River Group organization, the Indian River?
We haven't been contacted by them at all. We haven't reached out to them at all. Again, haven't never heard of them at all. So
I imagine and Mr. Drake could probably well inform you of their group and presence there. How much emphasis do you do on ice fishing? I know you obviously talk a lot about, the prime window being
Yeah.
summertime
Sure.
fishing, but
Yeah.
I do know of a lot of people that are very active ice fishermen, especially on Perch Lake.
And again,
the other areas, so.
respect, your question leads exactly to my point of us being the best kept secret in Jefferson County. We don't know about who to contact about ice fishing, because no one talks to us. And we're more than willing to entertain anyone's concern or desires. Anything they want to do, we just got to find out who they are and talk to them. They got to talk to us. And we're hoping these creel cards will do that. This is the third year we've done the creel limit cards, and they are distributed through all the tackle and marina shops, not all of them, but most of them around the Eastern Basin, all the way from the St. Louis River. And some folks have contacted, they know who we are, because the guy says who, talk to Bernie, find him. Talk to a couple folks. But as far as a formal venue or avenue to reach us, until that email account was created about probably 2 weeks ago, there was none. So that at least gets our point of contact information out there that helps them.
Okay, that kind of brings into another question I have, and I don't know whether Legislator Monticelli will remember or not, but I think we both serve on the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors, and there was a moment where there was kind of a question about, do we have a Fishers Advisory Board? And I don't know if you recall this or not, but I did say, yes, it is. I can't say who's on it particularly,
Exactly.
but there was a question as far as invasive species and trying to install receptacles for boats to be able to discharge something that they may have picked up while they're in the water.
Yeah,
The purpose of
clean, drain, and
not
dry.
spreading invasive
Yeah.
species,
Yeah.
whether it be milfoil that they catch in their propellers or something of that nature, so that it is not spread from place to place. But
Quagga zebra mussel.
again, that's a place for your board to get more engaged with another organization within the county that does have abilities to be able to secure grants to do things like that.
Sure.
So I think, you want people to come to you. You need to come to us too.
Oh, absolutely.
And be able to
Yeah.
kind of communicate
I
what
agree.
your plan is, what your vision is, who your board of directors is, so that we can kind of get a more systemic approach throughout the county to do what I can see in your vision as far as talking to us, what you really want to be able to expose your group in our county to.
I think we need to. It's a missed opportunity. And one thing I can share with the group, if I may,
Certainly.
is back in 2010 when Pat McCowan was still the chair of the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce up there. Through Don Miser, he met me through some other venues. They invited me up to help them help build their fish cap initiative, which led to all the professional tournaments and regional tournaments coming up to the Messina, Washington area. And it was probably a 4-year program, but we can do it. I've been around fishing. I've been up here since 1986. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to fishing, but not just tournament fishing, but specifically recreational fishing, because tournament anglers come and go, and as they return to their home port or their home state or wherever it is, they talk about their experiences in Jefferson County and share it with like-minded folks, and hopefully you might get a return of 2 people for every 5 that come up there that really want to tell their folks how well they had and enjoyed the trip, which is good. But the other thing is what do we do for our residents as well to get them involved in it too? And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And like you said, Mr. Peck, is a joint effort where you get that synergy from all these organizations together. That's a great thing. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't know what I don't know. But I know this board's been around since 1980, and I gave you 6 things I found out that we did that I led over the last 4 years. So from 1980 to now, I can't tell you what the heck we did. I wish I could tell you, but I can't.
Anything further, Legislator Beck?
Just one more thing is that, as far as, fisheries go, as you said, you've been, an angler for a long time here now. So how have things been in the last 3-4 years compared to, like, the last decade before that?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that, because everybody says, oh, the good old days of fishing. In my opinion, and people that fish with me, today are the good old days of fishing. Fishing's as good now as it has ever been anywhere. St. Lawrence River last year just set the New York State record for walleye, 18 pounds 2 ounces. Monster fish. Broke the old record of 16 pounds something. Right here, Jefferson County. We've got some great fisheries too, we really do. And we need to make sure that the public knows it, not only the public, but the non-resident public. And anything we do to make that happen. If we don't, no pun intended, we're missing the boat.
So with that, then, if you say certainly last year was a very good year compared to maybe decade previous, is there a potential then that the current lake and water levels have actually been a positive for fisheries.
I don't know. I know that we talked with a gentleman from the Sage River. I can't remember his name, a bearded fellow, but our chairman talked to him. And 2014 Bravo, one of those things is to help reinstitute those wetlands to help the pike, which are broadcast spawning. But we haven't seen a really increase in the northern pike. I can say that for sure. Anyone that's talked to us about a couple of sporting clubs we do talk with. But I think the potential is there. But again, as I understand it, 2014 Bravo was supposed to be about 3 or 4 more inches of water, not 3 or 4 feet. And tough to deal. Got a lot of water to deal with. A lot of water to deal with.
It is, I guess 0.7 of an inch of rain today. I think,
Absolutely.
I think that there's a lot to be said that there's been a lot of water deposited within the entire system. That
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's becoming a very emotional item, which
is.
justifiably so.
Yeah.
It's people's livelihoods and
Sure.
personal properties. But there's a bigger, broader view here, and I just want to be able to have a better understanding of things.
Sure. Absolutely.
Are you familiar with the Thousand Islands Tourism Council?
We are, and Gary's team he's got some folks on our advisory board members. They're advisory to our
Okay.
board, but they don't come to the meetings anymore. They used to, but they don't anymore. So. And we have a DEC representative from Region 6 Fisheries Office that's supposed to come to the meeting, and he retired 2 years ago. We've been asking, who's your new member, who's your new member? Limited fun, limited budget, we just can't send anybody. I understand.
Well, your enthusiasm is catching, I think.
It's tough to get a volunteer for a handshake to come do something for, dedicating man hours. Like, well, I hear you, Bernie, but I got you. We're trying, sir. We're trying.
Is there anything further? I just want to thank you for your presentation and your time this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving on, last but not least, we have Dr. Dan Dupe, Vice President for Administration and Finance from Jefferson Community College. It is doctor now, right?
It is. Thank you.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. I did want to introduce 2 people that came with me. Tom Finch is our academic vice president up at the college, and Megan Stadler is the chief of staff up at the college. Let me pull up my presentation. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm here to kind of present a little bit about the Jefferson Community College budget that you vote on every year. So this is just a little bit of information that we found at the last survey from the Community Studies, or Center for Community Studies. So the last survey showed that 66% of Jefferson County residents rate access to higher education as either excellent or good, and that was actually one of the highest quality of life indicators from that study. We always talk about Jefferson being the jewel of the North Country. These are some of the awards that awards and recognition that we received over the last year. So you can see we received the 2019 Military Friendly School designation. This was awarded by Victory. It's a publishing company that publishes GI Jobs. And more specifically, we are identified as military spouse and military friendly. We also earned national recognition for our outstanding personal support services for students. That was in the New York Times. We also were featured in the Chronicle of Higher Education and a special report from the American Council on Education. That was for our Health and Wellness Center. I know many have toured the campus, seen our Health and Wellness Center, and many of the services that we provide within the Health and Wellness Center. A lot of the stuff that we do in there is specifically done to mitigate barriers to completion for students. We were acknowledged by the Military Times for the best for vets in the college ranking. We were one of 208 schools that made the list, and only 208 schools, and only 4 community colleges in New York State made the list. We were awarded the Sportsmanship Award by the NJCAA. We were the only school in Region 3 that received this reward. We were named this is our 5th year in a row that we were named a 2019 Tree Campus USA site by the Arbor Day Foundation. Being a great resource for the community. In our last graduate survey, 83% of the respondents were successfully employed and or continuing their education. We graduated 48 nursing graduates this year. That is up 60% over the previous year, which was a big focus for us, is to get more students through that nursing program. RN. We don't do LPN. We do RN. Yep. We provided 6,349 credit hours to EDGE, which are the students that are in the high schools. If you extrapolate that out over our full tuition rate, which they pay a third of, we saved students and families right around $1 million in tuition and fees with that program. Our Center for Community Studies completed 6 projects. Obviously, we all know they do the Jefferson County survey, they do the Lewis County survey, they do a St. Lawrence County survey. One that they did this year, FDRLO actually requested that they did a regional or organizational education study. So they did an education study for the upstate area. We hosted community conversations and events. We continue to provide a wonderful venue for the community to come together for meetings, discussions, debates, and thought-provoking presentations. We had new programs to meet the community needs. We specifically brought on Homeland Security. We brought on a chemical dependency online certificate, and we brought on a few new partners in the higher education center to provide 4-year bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. From supporting the local community with workforce development, we partnered with 15 local employers, and we did training, 45 courses to 418 workforce students. So some fast facts for you. During academic year 2019, we had 586 degrees that were conferred to 569 graduates. We had 73% of our students that were Jefferson County residents. Our top programs of study, as you can see, math and science, humanities and social sciences, individual studies, business administration, and criminal justice. Many of these programs are transfer programs, so the students come for 2 years at JCC and actually move on to a 4-year college. Sure, absolutely. Yes, that is in order. Want to talk a little bit about enrollment because everybody's hearing a lot about enrollment. The national landscape, community college enrollment is down. The state landscape, community college enrollment is down. Locally, community college enrollment is down. A lot of this is to do with the economy. As people go back to work, less people come to school. So you'll always see an inverse or the same actually. Whenever you see the unemployment rate drop, you'll see community college enrollment drop. With us, we actually had gone up 35% from pre-recessionary. So we were at about 2,170 FTE. During 2006, 2007, we went as high as 2,891 FTE at our peak in 12-13. So we're on the correction part of this, where unemployment rates are going down, our adult student population's going down. Where we are keeping up pretty well is in the high school to college age student. In our area, we're not seeing the decline as much as many other counties are in the high school populations. Obviously, New York City is pretty much the only place that's growing, but we are not declining at as much of a rate, and we are continuing to do very well with that population and getting them to JCC. So the budget process this year, with the state, SUNY, along with all the community colleges, we went out requesting flat funding for the community colleges, so more of a pool of money, but we also wanted that FTE base to increase so that if there was, for whatever reason, a recession in the future and the enrollment spiked again, there was a coverage on both ends. We actually were able to get this. So we did receive a base aid rate of 98% of our 18-19 budgeted amount, or $100 an FTE, whichever was greater. For the college, it was actually 98% of our 18-19 budgeted amount. So it was only a loss for us of about $154,000 versus $450,000 if we would have just gotten $100 an FTE. Our total projected operating budget is $28.6 million. That's actually a 0.4% decrease from our 18-19 budget. Most of that is in personnel as we move our personnel down to meet the needs. Our issue is with enrollment, being a service industry, every service that we provide doesn't touch every student that we have, so it's not always a one-for-one. So it is scaling our current services, seeing which services we can put together, and really looking at how we can do things more effectively and efficiently. We also will be looking at new programs, which programs we need to offer that are things that people want to see going forward. So those will be things that we're looking at in the future. Our proposed tuition increase, 3.5%. That's been historically right about where we've been. That's historically where most community colleges are right now. We have some that are higher, some that are lower. We're right about in the middle when you average everybody out from a tuition cost. Our planned fund balance usage is $490,000. We are at about 9% of our budget in fund balance that we have left, so this would start the process of decreasing that down. We'd like to stay with SUNY, it's between 5 and 15%, so we've tried to stay right around in that 10% range, but this does have an impact. So again, our request to the county is a 2% net increase. That 2% net increase aligns with salary increases, our incremental increases in expenses with health care, maintenance agreements, technology contracts, all of that. And this was just to kind of show what our funding mix looks like. This has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, and now it's starting to change even more as student tuition and fees are going down. The county's continued dedication and support to the college continues to move that local share support up. With that, in that local share is also, as the county moves up, the county chargeback rate goes up. That goes into the local share, so that is the amount that we can charge other counties for their students that come here. So that has moved that percentage up. In the past, that percentage has been down near 20%, and this is moving it up to, statutory levels are 26.7, but statutory level for the state is 40, so and it's only 33% for tuition and fees for the students. So as you can see over the 26.7. For the state, it says, the statutory rate says up to 40, so they leave themselves an out there, so up to 40. Yeah. But that is my presentation, and if anybody has any questions, and we'd like to thank you for your support.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Do we have questions? Legislator Peck?
Excelsior grant. So that's been in progress for 2 or 3 years now, I guess. Have you seen any impact, any students taking advantage of it? Or are they being driven more towards four-year institutions?
There's really not a lot of detail on it yet. We've been reporting on it for the last couple of years. We've had about 143 students in the year that have taken advantage of the Excelsior. So, I mean, for us, it didn't look like it was going to have much of an impact simply because if you lived here locally and you were going to come to JCC, the Excelsior only covered tuition anyway, so for you to go away and spend the money on room and board, it wasn't going to cover that, so there was going to be an expense for you. So our commuter population, it wouldn't have really mattered as much to. Where I thought we would see a decline is in the students coming to the residence halls, because if you can come to the residence halls and live at JCC and get your tuition for free, and there's not that big of a spread in room and board, well, then you can go to Oswego, Potsdam, wherever else for about the same amount of money. But we really haven't seen that either. So what we were hoping for is we were hoping for kind of an influx of students that would have gone for free anyways, but didn't really understand that they would get Pell and TAP already. And I don't think we saw that either. So it's kind of, Excelsior's up in the air as to what impact it's really had on community colleges. The association that I'm part of, the Community College Business Officials, we have this conversation all the time, and everybody comes back to it really hasn't impacted us much other than every student that we bring in that does get Excelsior, we have to keep them at 16, 17 tuition levels. So there is a breakage there of, for us, last year was about $27,000. Yes, because they don't pay the current year's tuition. They are basically locked in at the 16, 17 rate.
And as far as there's lots of big, broad conversations as far as student loan debt and costs associated with that. And, interest rates have been going up some, and, I think 3.5% is modest increase, but, I mean, how does colleges continue to increase tuitions while at the same point in time, right now at least, overall loan interest rates are also increasing? I mean, because at what point does college education in general just become unaffordable because of those factors? Is that conversations that are happening much, or?
I think we're still in a place where, I mean, you can come to JCC for about $4,600 a year, I think it is in total. So, I mean, we're not totally out of the realm right yet. I think you do see a lot of that on the private side. We're still under the Pell, so the students that need it most, for the most part, can come to JCC for free. I think 83%, I want to say 83% of our students get some sort of financial aid, which brings that dollar down. Again, the tuition is not where a lot of your cost is in higher education. It's in the room and board. It's in the college experience. So, I mean, until that changes, the college experience costs money when you live and eat and stay at a place. Thank you.
Further questions? Legislator Fitzpatrick?
Not a question, but I've been paying attention this past year in the sports section from Watertown Daily Times. I'll give them applause. In any event, looking at the students who are the top players in, be it lacrosse, soccer, softball, basketball, I am amazed how many of those top students are going to JCC come this fall. So you're going to have some pretty damn good teams this year coming here.
We're hoping.
Yeah,
We're hoping.
no, it's quite a few of those students, and they're also athletically and academically doing very well.
Right.
So I think that's great for JCC. They're not going all down to Herkimer.
Right.
You know,
Which does give us the opportunity to plug, we do need those athletic facilities, that is something that she did. Yes, but we do need that. That is a competitive thing that, as we want to provide the services to our local students, our facilities are, for the most part, lesser than what they're coming from. So, we do need to look at that, and we are looking at that.
But they're still going to attend.
Somewhat, yes, absolutely.
Other questions? I have two. The Excelsior program, does that sunset?
It has not. It's
Well, I mean, is it in
law.
the provision? Is it supposed to have an end to it? Because
Not that
when you tell us that the tuition is still based on 2016, is that into perpetuity? I mean,
It is how it's written currently. We're trying to, through advocacy, push it at least to the current year's tuition.
I wasn't trying to get the law to sunset. I just wondered if you knew.
Yeah,
But
no,
if it
it's
doesn't,
not,
they got
it's not scheduled to sunset, no, and it's not, and the 16-17 tuition rate is not scheduled to sunset as of right now.
If the state legislature treats it like the up to 40%.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
So if there's nothing further, thank you very much, Dr.
Okay.
Dupuy.
Thank you all.
Well, I see our audience is very small. I still need to offer the floor to anyone who wishes to bring, anyone care to have the privilege of the floor? Seeing no one coming toward the microphone, we can deal with last month's minutes. Additions, deletions, corrections. Hearing nothing, they'll stand as presented. Moving on to Finance and Rules sponsored resolutions.
First resolution this evening is memorial for James D. St. Croix, Sr.
I have a motion, please. Legislator Nabawanek, Legislator Drake, discussion. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Payment of legislators' expenses.
Motion, please. Legislator McBride. Legislator Drake, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2019 county budget to provide for payment of tax tertiary refund.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Nabawanek, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
You want to hold on the next two resolutions?
I'm not, it depends on if you have a bulletproof vest on.
Adopting the 2019-2020 Jefferson Community College budget.
I have a motion. Legislator McBride, Legislator Drake, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Appropriation for the conduct of Jefferson Community College for fiscal year 2019-20.
Motion, please. Legislator Nabawanek, Legislator Fitzpatrick, discussion. All in favor?
Rescinding the previous...
Opposed? I think that's carried.
Amending the 2019 county budget in relation to employment and training.
Motion, please. Legislator McBride. Legislator Drake, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to General Services Committee-sponsored resolutions.
Amending 2019 county budget to recognize insurance recovery and transfers within the road machinery fund.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator McBride, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2019 county budget and capital plan in relation to Lake Ontario flooding.
Motion, please. Legislator Drake, Legislator Fitzpatrick, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending 2019 county budget in relation to recycling and waste management.
Motion, please. Legislator Nebelonik, Legislator Drake. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2019 county budget to recognize insurance recovery and allocating the same in the sheriff's department budget.
Motion, please. Legislator Fitzpatrick, Legislator Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Accepting,
Well, the only resolution coming before us from Health and Human Services.
accepting funding in relation to Office for the Aging 2019-20 aged localities, addressing unmet needs and amending 2019 county budget.
Motion, please. Legislator McBride. Legislator Nebelonik. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Well, that brings us sort of to the end of our meeting. There are some informational items, and I don't think you'd want to miss the opportunity to wish a happy anniversary, happy 28th anniversary of his 39th birthday to our county administrator.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday, Bob. We're all younger than you, Carolyn. But not by much. I beg your pardon? Oh, well, yes. I'm not sure how many grandchildren, but he's yet one more. 50. Yeah. Well, won't be long. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
Is there anything further for the committee? May I have a motion to adjourn? Legislator Johnson, Legislator Fitzpatrick. We are adjourned, please.
Pretty clever,
You didn't even know what I was going to say, did you? What was he talking about?
anniversary did I say?
It's an old Jack Benny routine. 39. How
you doing now?
Nobody's spending it.
That's his brother.
Have anniversary.
Well, that works until a child of yours becomes 40 and then you no longer be.
Well, they're on their first anniversary.
Yeah. Oh, I see how that works.
At least you know Lyndon Johnson and Jack Benninger, so you had a good night.
That's right. Absolutely.
Although not everybody knows that.
Absolutely.
Got a present for you.
While you were gone, we settled a motion in bankruptcy court. We kind of had